Hey, and welcome back to the number one podcast in the world, the Cellarcast, episode 127. I'm recording this a little later in the day because I have been asleep. I have been sleeping all day. I don't know what's gotten into me. The sleep bug, I guess. I just can't stop taking naps. I'm a menace. It's a Sunday after Thanksgiving. I had a good Thanksgiving. I guess I'll just get into that because there was no questions from last time. So this Thanksgiving was the first time that I spent it with Kat's family. I thought, hey, maybe it would be nice to do some son-in-law stuff, right? Be part of the family. So I went over to her place on Thursday, and while we were going over, I was like, hey, am I going to be the only white person there? And she said, yeah. And I said, okay, cool. And there's this video that I saw. It was this meme. It was like this tweet. Every Mexican family has that one white son. And it's this family function of like 30 Mexicans, right? And in the midst of them is just one white guy. And it's someone's boyfriend. And that's me. And he looks like the happiest guy there. He's so excited. And it wasn't quite that large of a function. It was just maybe like 10 people. But it was cool, and there was no. I mean, I joke about race, but there was really nothing except for one moment where I felt, okay, I'm not a super big eater. I don't have a huge appetite, which I actually lament, right? Because I love food. I love eating and tasting food. Put this on like a screen and broadcast in like a third world country, me saying that. I love eating and tasting food. But I'm not that hungry of a guy. I don't know if you've ever seen my physique, but I'm like 3% muscle and like 5% body fat. So I don't have a very high calorie demand. I kind of eat maybe like twice a day, and that's good enough for me. And I'll eat one time and I'll be full for like 7 hours. So we get there, and I'm already not like starving because I'd eaten like 6 hours before. I'm already not starving. And to their, I mean, the food was great. It was really good. They had this delicious ham. I love ham. I'm a pork guy. I don't know if I've ever mentioned that, but I am a pork guy. They had this ham that was delicious. I didn't have any turkey because I'm not much of a poultry fellow. They had one of her cousins, I think, made this delicious, like, cheesy scallop potato. Excuse me. I burped. I burp because I'm thinking about it. Her mom made the spaghetti and meatballs. I guess I don't know. Filipinos have this weird mishmash of cultural foods, and sometimes they're like, yeah, Thanksgiving is like spaghetti and meatballs. But great overall. And you know what? I'm gonna shout out. This might not be an incredible innovation, but it was the first time I'd ever thought of it. They had cranberry sauce, obviously, but someone they'd made this homemade cornbread. And I was like, cornbread? Yeah, I was already like kind of done with my plate. And I was like, I could maybe eat like a little cornbread for dessert or something. I ended up overeating and feeling like shit. And I thought, maybe the cornbread might be like a little bland on its own, maybe just like a little something with it. And I decided to put some cranberry sauce on the cornbread. And you know what? It tasted just like a berry pie. It was actually great. I would totally recommend it as like I don't know if you'd call it a budget, but like a makeshift, like a cherry pie, because the cornbread kind of does a lot to stave the sort of acidity, the sourness of the cranberries. So it's still got a little of that kind of that bite, that sour bite to it, but it's much more diminished, and you just get like a fruit flavor with a really nice sort of just bread, semi-sweet kind of bread flavor. and it was actually great. Like I could go for it again. So I would recommend that if you've got leftovers. I don't think anyone's got leftovers by the time this goes up, but maybe keep it in mind. Yeah, a little cranberry sauce on the cornbread goes really well, and it's a little bite-sized thing. Well, it's a couple bites, but yeah. So I ate, in my opinion, quite a bit. Right? We're a leftovers family in my house. We've always got leftovers going on. And I had leftovers for breakfast. Usually like my routine is I make like a big ass meal and then I eat maybe half of it for dinner, and then the next morning I eat the rest of it. That's what I do. I ate the rest of my quesadilla this morning after I woke up that I made last night. So yeah, I finished all my food, and they were like, "Oh, you want some pie?" And I was like, I'm a little full. Like, I don't know if I want to eat anymore. And her uncle was like, "You're already full?" And I was like, oh no, I'm like this skinny white boy with no appetite. Fuck. I'm embarrassing myself in front of all these POC. No, but I did eventually eat a little more, and it was too much for me. But I should not have eaten that much. Like I felt, I got hit by a semi truck on that one. But meeting her family was cool. I met some of her family I hadn't met before, like some cousins and stuff. I had prepared myself for the question, but I was kind of dreading it. And that was, we're just sitting there, and her uncle asks, so, they're talking to all the youngsters, because it's like me, her, and her cousins who are like around our age, they're in like college right now, and just, about what Kat's doing and all that, and her uncle goes, so Taigen, are you still in school? And it's, oh God. It's the question. I try to prepare for it, but I never am. I feel like I've spoken before about the most embarrassing thing you can do is tell like a 40-year-old person that you do YouTube. It's the most embarrassing thing in the world until you're successful, until you make a lot of money doing it. It's always a toss-up. Some of them think that it's cool. Some of them are like, this is an Asian family, right? Like, they're gonna say, oh, you should be in college. You should really be getting a degree. Why would I go into debt for an English degree? That's all I'm gonna get, What else would I do? It's not worth it. I should just make videos about, I don't know, like, ill bleed or some shit. I'm getting off topic. That's that's always the response I'm scared of. And I was like, no, I actually don't go to school. And there's like this fucking, like, in the anime, when something big happens and you get the cutouts of all the characters' eyes, and they're like, pa-chow, 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 pa-chow. That's what I felt. And her uncle's like, oh, so are you working or something? And I was like, and of all people, Kat's mom runs defense for me. And she goes, oh, he works online. And I was like, oh. And I think for some reason, after her uncle heard that, he was like, oh, okay, cool, he works online. That's cool. And then he just like went back to his food. And I was like, whew. Shout out to Mrs. Kat's mom. She was my wingman in that moment. That was an immediate relief, and so the like parents and the older adults were sitting kind of separate from the children. It's so weird because we're all technically adults, but it's different, right? When they're 40 and you're 21. Thankfully the conversation was allowed to be, and they were all speaking in like Filipino, so like I wasn't going to be in on that conversation. That was basically like just saw that stupid The Family Guy Godfather clip. I can't understand I can't just like to speak a different language. And Kat goes, yeah, they're speaking Filipino, Tigan. It's a language of subtlety. Anyway, yeah, but her cousins were cool. I liked her cousins. It was much easier to talk to them about what I do. Just because, I don't know where this, it's so much easier to talk to someone who's, about that. And they were, like, what do you do? And I thought it was kind of funny because one of them is, he's like, I guess a casual YouTube watcher. Like, I'm a very YouTube guy. Like, I'm a YouTube guy. I grew up on this stupid website. So he had like some frame of reference. So he's like, there's nothing against him. I just thought it was funny. He goes like, oh, so like what kind of content do you make? Do you make like reaction videos, like gameplay? Like, oh, I make like little documentaries on gaming stuff. I don't know, for some reason I thought that was so funny to get like a casual person's idea of like what a, because when you say, like, I always hate it when Kat tells people she goes to school with, like when she tells her classmates or her teachers that, like, oh, her boyfriend does YouTube. Because, like, hearing my boyfriend makes, like, gaming videos on YouTube, what I imagine is a guy with a channel that has, like, 20 subs, and for the past 5 years, he's been uploading unedited 6-hour VODs of him playing some RPG on the GameCube. And he's like, I don't get why my channel, every video gets, like, 2 views. And he's like, I don't know why my channel isn't growing. No, I've been uploading, like, really frequently. But also, like, I don't want to show people my channel. It feels embarrassing. So, maybe I could show them the main channel. I could not show them this podcast. I feel like I would get, dude. When I was at GDC that one time, when I met some people, and I was like, oh, they would add me like, oh, do you have a LinkedIn? And I was like, no, I do have a LinkedIn, but I haven't updated it since like since I was like 18 or something, 18 or 19. I don't use it at all. So I'm like, I have a YouTube channel, and they would look it up, and one of the most recent videos was the fucking Brad Stallion series video, which is called Soft Locks, Hard Cocks. And I have to, like, explain that to these, like, grown adults. And they always thought it was funny. It was just like, oh. What was I talking about? Right, it was just, I don't know, it was easy. And they thought it was cool. I don't know. It was a good time. It was a nice Thanksgiving, relatively uneventful outside of that. Oh, there was an event. Kat's brother spoke to me for the first time in 3 years or about 2.5 years since we like sort of met. He never talks to me, even though he lives at home with them. But he did, and you know what the context was? It was. They were talking about Valorant, and one of her cousins looks over at me and he goes like, "Oh, Tigan, you play games? Do you play Valorant?" And I said, "No, I never really got into it." And her brother goes, "Don't." And that's the first time. That's the first and only thing he's ever said to me was to not play Valorant. Yeah. Oh, and then Kat wanted me to tell this story. So I'm usually I don't drink. And I kind of prefer, and Kat doesn't really, she has like 1 sip of alcohol a year. She's like not a drinker. So, but like, I've told her like, hey, yeah, I just kind of would prefer if you didn't like drink around me or something. But it was, I don't know, it was like Thanksgiving, and I was like, okay, whatever, fucking do it. What, I don't care. She apparently referred to this as house training to her friends, which, like, fuck you for that. That's fuck you. And we got back to she didn't even finish her drink because she has zero tolerance for alcohol. And I think she got like 0% buzz. She took like 2 tiny little baby sips, and she's like, her uncle just finished the rest. And we were waiting, when we left, we were waiting by the car for like her mom to come, like, their mom and her brother to come back. and join us. And it was just the two of us, so I like gave her a little kiss, and I was like, oh, thank God I can kiss you now. And she was like, what? And I said, like, yeah, earlier your breath like reeked of alcohol, and it made me nauseous. It made me want to throw up. And straight up, like, if you want to drink, you can't kiss me. Like, I won't do it. I'm gonna be sick. And she thought that was really funny. So that's my house training her. Is okay, but if you want to kiss from me, then you can't have any alcohol. I'm not gonna do it. I felt a little bad because I tried most of the dishes there, but her cousin made this squash soup, and I didn't have any. Not because, well, I do have something against squash. I'm sure it was good. Everyone said it was good, but I cannot. There's two foods that my body will not accept me getting down, and that's cooked spinach and squash. I've tried them before, when I was a kid, when I was older, as like a teenager, and I'm not kidding you. Okay, so when I was a kid, I hated vegetables. I still have a strong dislike for most vegetables, but I mean, I've come around to more of them now. But when I was a kid, I was like, I hate vegetables. But for some reason, I thought I saw on, like, I don't know. For some reason, I must have seen on TV cooked spinach in some context, and to me, it looked good. And so I asked my mom if she could make some for us for dinner, and she was really excited. She said, "Oh my God, Tyke wants to try some vegetables." I'm maybe like 9 or 10 at this time. Oh, Tyke wants to try some vegetables. So she makes some for dinner, and I'm all excited, and then I get it in front of me, and first I notice the smell. I'm like, well, it doesn't smell very good. But you know, whatever. I asked for this. I'll try it. I'll eat it, and I'm not opposed to trying new foods. I never have been. I'm actually not a picky eater. I just have, like, you know, preferences and tastes. Most vegetables just taste like shit to me, so I don't like eating them. So I'm like, okay, you know, I'll put it in my mouth, and I take a spoonful, and it is immediately so rancid to me. It is so gag-inducing. I had to, like, super focus. I had to go into, like, my Zen mode just to swallow it. And I shit you not, while I was swallowing it, I think it was so repulsive to me that my body, like, something in my brain assumed that I was, like, trying to eat, like, fecal matter or something like that. This is a gross story. I'm sorry if you're listening. This is a gross food story. Because it gets worse. Like, it must have been that same kind of response where your brain is like, dude, it's a code red. We got to get this shit out of here. It doesn't even get down my throat. Like, I don't even finish swallowing it before I just, like, uncontrollably, like, I had it was just like an involuntary muscular, like, spasm motion. I just like fucking like railgun shot that shit out of my mouth. There was no spray, there was no spread. It was like, it made like a perfect straight line across the table. It was like a streak, like a charge rifle. And it was like, oh my god, fuck. It wasn't even. Does that even count as vomit? I don't know. It's just pure, flat out rejection. It's the most visceral response I've ever had to any kind of food ever, was spinach. I just could not get it down. And we were like, well, I guess Tygan doesn't like spinach, because it's such a bad. Okay, and then the other thing was squash. Squash I was able to eat when I was at my friend's house as a kid. I also had a similar experience where I was like, oh yeah, I'll try some squash. I don't know what squash is. Let me try some. And it was either, I don't remember what it was, if it was cooked or in a soup of some kind or something like that. But I tried it, I ate it, and I did not like it, but I did eat, I sampled it, and within 10 seconds I threw it up. Like, it just came straight out of me. My body would not would not stand for that kind of insult. And it's like, it sounds really childish, right? It sounds really immature, but it's like, no, I cannot accept certain foods like that. Funny enough, I do like spinach on pizza. I quite like spinach on pizza. It might be because it's just prepared a different way, or it has like fats and greases that kind of saturate it, which makes it like, I seriously just think it's the taste. It's like the taste and the smell and the texture. And if you just remove all that, like, the stuff that makes it spinach, then it's fine. But I looked at that squash soup and I was like, oh, I feel kind of bad for not trying it because he made it and everyone liked it, but it would be more embarrassing for at least one of us if I tried it and immediately threw up. Like, I don't trust myself not to do that, and I don't want to test it out if that would happen again. I don't want to test out that theory at the first Thanksgiving that I'm spending with her family. So we got home, and around maybe pretty early, like around maybe 5:30 or 6. And both of us just immediately fell asleep. Like, we were beat after that. We fell asleep. And the funny thing is, we both usually wake up at the same time. Maybe that's normal if you, like, sleep with someone else. We both usually woke up, like, we wake up at the same time, which we did. And she'd had a similar experience to me where I had like a full night's rest, dude. I had a full night's rest. I had multiple dreams. I woke up. I was like, oh, man, I just had a crazy sleep, dude. And I look at her, and it's dark out. I'm like, oh, man, we probably woke up at like 3 or 4 a.m. And we checked the time, and it was 7 p.m. We'd been asleep for an hour. We're like, fuck, what do we do now? What are we supposed to do now? And you know what we did? We watched fucking Wish. I guess that's the segue. That's the segue into the Wish segment of this podcast. So she said that, oh, what time are we leaving? Hey, Mom, could you maybe drive us to the theater? And there's a movie. And she was going to pay for my ticket. She called it a surprise. And I was like, babe, I cannot do a movie right now. I cannot go to a theater and sit in a movie for like an hour or over an hour. I'm going to fall asleep. And I don't want to go to a movie to fall asleep. I'm not 70. I'm only like 70. I'm only 80 at heart, I'm just an old man on the inside. And so she agreed because she was also really tired. And after we woke up, she was really curious about Wish, but she didn't want to spend money on it. And also we were like, I don't know, we just had like a limited amount of time. Like, we're not going to go to the theater. I doubt there's any midnight showings of Disney's Wish. So we just watched a cam rip of it with like the casino ad over the whole thing with like, go to slotslight.net. And for the record, I'm glad that we did not spend money on it. Sometimes piracy is good because you can ingest something without having to support it. And people are like, oh, but what, the artist doesn't get the money. It's like, no, but in this case, it's like, I don't want to encourage them. So as you might expect, I didn't like it. Well, I say I didn't like it. Oh. God damn. I say I didn't like it, but that's a little bit of an overstatement. I had an incredibly middling response to it. It's not a good movie. It's not a terrible movie, depending on how you define a bad film. I would describe Wish as the least confident film I've seen in a very long time. Maybe a front runner for that spot. For the all-time spot. So going into this, I had absolutely no idea what it was about. I didn't watch like the full actual trailer because I don't give a fuck. I don't care about Disney, and I don't even like Disney. My girlfriend just makes me watch Disney movies because she's like a baby. She has baby brain, and but okay, I realized like. This was like the first Disney movie in a while, like since maybe, what was it, Forbidden World? Lost Planet? No, that's not what that's called. It was that movie that no one saw, where I had no idea what the premise was. I heard someone say, she told me, oh, it's an origin story for the Wish, from Wish Upon a Star. Wish Upon? My favorite movie, Wish Upon? That's all I heard. It was an origin story for the Wish, and that means literally nothing to me because what the fuck do you mean? It's the origin story for the Wish from when you wish upon a star. It's not a thing. It's a verb. What? So what really struck me is that sometimes I see ads for it on the sides of buses. And the characters kind of look AI generated. And, okay, it really hit me when we were watching Santa Claus movies on TV last time. And we got 3 separate, like, unique ads for Wish. And I realized that I watched 3 different ads for the same movie. And I still had no clue what it was about. All I got was there's a girl and a star and a man. And a goat, and I don't know, like rabbits or something. And I have no idea. I don't know. I guess that's the main character. I don't know who the villain is. I don't know what the conflict is. I don't know why I should be interested in it. Which, pretty much every single ad I saw for it was, hey, it exists. And that's actually a pretty good metaphor for the film. So here's what Wish is about. So Wish is about this kingdom that it's called Roses, and there's the people come to Roses because it's this perfect society where you don't have to pay taxes and everyone's happy and everything kind of rules, right? Everything's awesome here. Everyone's super stoked about living in Roses, and the king is this like sorcerer king named Magnifico, and he has the power to grant anyone's wish. So what you do is when you immigrate to the country. You go to him and like it's like this small nation state, or like city state, and you go and or when you turn 18, either when you get there or when you turn 18. If you're over 18, he goes and he takes your wish, your dream, your one singular dream that everyone only gets one thing that they want to do with their life. That's it. And by 18, everyone has one, I guess. And you give it to him, and it comes out as this little bubble, and then he grants it or he doesn't, like once a month or something like that. They never explain why he can only do it once a month, or why he would want to do it once a month, or anything like that. But that's how it works. Okay, cool. And the main character is this girl named Asha, and she lives with her grandparents, and well, it's like her mom and her grandpa. And she really wants her grandpa to get his wish because he's 100 and never got it granted. So she wants to be the sorcerer's apprentice. Whoa. Oh, the sorcerer's apprentice? Am I picking up an idea here? No. And she's going for like an internship, and she goes in for this interview with Magnifico, and he's like, let me show you, hey, it's your first day. Well, she doesn't even get hired. She just says, I really want to be your apprentice. And he takes her into this room, and it's where he keeps all the wishes. It's like in his secret workshop behind a sealed door. Okay, already? And, shouldn't you take me to dinner first? Yeah, they do this weird shit where they're like, oh, you're almost 18. You got to go see the... I'm like, yeah-oh. And, bro, who's in Magnifico's black book? That's what I want to know. And he's like, yeah, so most of the wishes here don't get granted because so she like her grandpa's wish, and it's like, oh, I want to inspire people. I want to create something that will inspire or influence the young generation. And he's like, and he goes, oh yeah, I could never grant this because it's too vague. Like something to inspire people. That could be anything. That could be anything from like a song to like a revolutionary, like something horrible, right? And Asha's like, that's so awful. How could you say that? And I'm like, wait, but like, is he wrong though? No, seriously, like, is he wrong? He sounds kind of right. At least on that one, it actually makes sense. And I actually was sort of interested at this point. I thought, oh, okay. So we've got this guy who can grant anyone's wish with magic, but he doesn't give everyone, he takes their wish from them and they forget it. They lose their wish, and a part of them is just missing, right? And he basically decides, he's like kind of pruning society into this shape that he likes by only granting wishes that he thinks are beneficial for society and taking wishes that he thinks are too reckless or dangerous and just sealing them off. And I was like, that's kind of interesting, actually. And Asha is super opposed to that. But like, okay, so immediately they hit you with like this sort of twist. They introduce you to something, this concept, and then they instantly hit you with the twist. And that actually kind of got my little ears perking up. I got my little tail wagging because I was like, you know, a lot of Disney stories, they'll have, the plot has like, you have an idea pretty much right out the bat what the conflict is. But then at some point there's a twist. I mean, a lot of stories do this. There's a twist that recontextualizes things. New information is gained that changes the main character's mind or something like that. They're faced with a decision. And we're doing that instantly. We're doing that within the first 10 minutes of the movie. So that leads me to believe, oh, they're going to actually do something with this idea. And this has some interesting implications. You could tell a neat story with this kind of an idea. And, you know, in my mind, I was like, this is a totally obvious setup. This is a super obvious, okay, it's going to be cliche, but it could be kind of neat, you know? It's like, oh, okay, so she's going to like find a way to grant everyone's wishes, and then it's going to cause chaos, and she's going to like realize like, okay, maybe he had a bit of a point, but it'll like turn around at the end, and maybe she also had a bit of a point, and they'll both kind of like learn each, he'll kind of be taught, like maybe his problem isn't that he's evil, or it's just that he's too safe, he's too conservative with the way that he handles this whole wish granting thing. And then they're both going to learn from each other something in the end. That doesn't happen. Actually, nothing happens because the movie doesn't do anything with any of its ideas ever. It is the most wildly frustrating film to watch because this movie feels like it got completely screwed up in rewrites, because there's all of these. If you're like a competent writer or someone with a brain, it's so easy to come up with just anything to do with these concepts. Like in my head, and I even heard other people's ideas for like what they think could be like a good direction to go with this stuff. In my head, my thing was, oh, she's gonna be. What if she was the sorcerer's apprentice? What if she becomes his apprentice, and then, much like the classic Fantasia short, she causes, some ruckus because she is tapping into power that she doesn't understand? Like this idea, right? She causes chaos that she doesn't understand. It would be an obvious homage to the sorcerer's apprentice, but you would be doing something totally different with it. And this is like Disney's big 100th anniversary thing. This movie is just packed with really stupid, shallow references. That one could actually be kind of fun. Oh, we're taking this classic Disney idea and we're almost making a whole movie out of it. But it just kind of like the premise is a bit of an homage. because that's such a classic image, right? Is Mickey in the little wizard outfit. I mean, the wizard guy in that short is called Yen Sid. It's Disney backwards. It's very emblematic of the brand and the history and all that. So instead, what happens is she's like, I'm going to go wish on a star, and then a star comes down, and it's this little star guy that you've probably seen in the marketing, and he's magic or something, and he shoots magic, and he doesn't grant wishes. He doesn't really do much of anything, actually. He's magic-y. I don't know what the fuck he's supposed to do. He just kind of does shit that the plot needs based off of magic. Occasionally they do a little bit of, he'll animate an object, kind of like the Sorcerer's Apprentice. He'll animate an object or something like that. And like a pair of scissors will start flying around and snipping at stuff. But most of what he does is just, he makes things talk. He makes plants talk. He makes animals talk. He makes the goat comic relief side character talk. That goat fucking... Oh my god. It's like the laziest comic relief side character ever. Yet they do nothing with the star. It's just... Really? This was the most imaginative thing you could do? The thing starts talking? That's really crazy. Yeah, just like nothing done with it. I don't know what the point of the star was, besides being the star that she wishes upon. When she does that and the star comes down, there's this big magical glow over the kingdom. And everyone's like, wow, it's like magic. And Magnifico's like, I didn't do that shit. What is with that? And for some reason, he just kind of immediately jumps to the conclusion that someone's using magic who isn't him. And he doesn't trust that, which is like kind of reasonable. But instead, he decides to just become like a complete megalomaniac. And he goes out and he gives a speech about like, I'm gonna fucking give me that fucking traitor. I'm gonna cut their head off. He doesn't say that. This is while Asha and the shitty goat and the star are going to like break into the wish vault. This movie just flies by. Like, it is really paper thin. This is like halfway through the film already. And people start asking him questions, like just not even like aggressive or confrontational. They just start asking him basic questions about, hey, why does so few wishes get granted? Why can you only grant wishes every so often? Why does this happen? Why does that happen? Like, what's this? And he gets so mad, he slams the door and he goes into his villain song. Here's my next thing. The music in this movie tastes like dust. It is the most... Instantly, the first song that we heard, it didn't feel like a musical song. It didn't feel like a Disney musical. And I said, this sounds like Charlie Puth, which is not a good comparison. And Kat said that apparently, like I looked it up too. Yeah, this movie had like 3 songwriters, I think, and at least 2 of them they're not like musical theater people. They are pop writers. They're pop songwriters. So all of the music is the blandest, least offensive, mildly catchy, just like total pap. I can't. Okay, look. If I'm listening to your Disney musical soundtrack, and if I can't imagine a group of like gay 20-something theater kids putting on a Disney musical soundtrack and looking at me like I'm expected to know the words to it, you failed. Okay? This movie does not. There are no kids with the fucking pins on their backpack that are playing this at the function. Okay, that is not going down. So this villain song was where I really started to notice it, because it's not a good villain song. It's not good musical theater. Like when you're doing a movie musical, it's musical theater. It's just a film version of that. And the thing, like, I'm not a musical fan, right? I don't hate them. like I can enjoy musicals. And I feel like I have some kind of knowledge, some basic, at least musical background. I have been in musicals. I've done some theater. I have some experience with at least doing some of this stuff. So I have like I have some taste when it comes to it. So the problem with this song is it doesn't sound like a villain song at all. Essentially what this is that it's meant to bridge this very jarring gap where he goes from like a little shaky and a little like, I don't know like what his real deal is, to a full-on villain. By the end, he's committed to using evil magic, which is evil because it's like green and stuff. And it's kind of weird and it sort of feels a little forced, but you could totally make it work by using a song, because songs are like these very compressed stories, like these very tight, compressed format for telling a story. And it's this is the things that I get is the song, or the things that I get. I don't know what it's called. It's that song. You may have heard it. I don't know. So the whole thing is basically he thinks the people of his kingdom are ungrateful. He does so much for them, and he's like, kind of right. I mean, they don't have to pay taxes. They don't have to. This is like a communist utopia, and the communists pay more or less tax. Oh fuck, they would pay more taxes. Shit, this is like a capitalist utopia. And he's like, what the fuck do they know? Fuck them. I wish I could kill all of them. But the music is like this. The actual song is this weirdly bright sounding, positive, poppy thing with these trumpets. It's da 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 da. This is the things that I get. And it sounds so off. And like in my head, I'm going to say that I could do better because I think I could. Because I'm arrogant. I'm an arrogant asshole. If it was me, it feels like the way more obvious thing would be you would start out with, because this is a song about him becoming villainous. You start out with that sound, right? You start with these big major key trumpets and all these different sounds, and then you get like, let's say 3 choruses, and then every chorus you start slowly replacing parts of the instrumentation with things like maybe replace it with like strings. You start changing the melody to have like it shifts. It does like a key shift into like a minor key or something. And then you get like a big like key change for like the bridge, and then the final chorus is like full on minor key, really villainous, malicious. What's the word that I'm thinking of? Ominous, yeah, sounding like spooky. Just musically, right? Like those kinds of things. Those sorts of musical pieces of the musical texture. So you get in music, it would be, like telling a story through music in a movie musical. God forbid you tell a story with one of your songs using the music and the instrumentations. But no, instead, it sounds the exact same the whole time. And you get this weird dissonance with like the singer's performance, who he's actually like sounding kind of aggressive and mean by the end, but the song is still it sounds like Footloose. Footloose, loose, put on your DuckTales. It sounds like it's the villain song. It's a song where he like he does his full heel turn, and it sounds like Footloose and DuckTales. Like what the no, it's not good. The movie is stuffed with these really pointless homages, or not even homages. They're just like references. They're just like, hey, check it out. Whoa, this guy's like Peter Pan. Isn't that crazy? And yeah, it's lame. It's I saw someone online saying, I saw multiple people online saying that it sets up for some sort of Disney cinematic universe, and I was kind of dreading that. And then I watched it, and no, that's not the case at all. That's, if you've seen that, that's just nerds being over dramatic. Whoa, dude, you made a reference to this thing? That's like a cinematic universe. Whoa, dude, you made a reference to the Bible? Is this in the biblical cinematic universe? No, they just have a bunch of characters who are the seven dwarves for no reason. So, like, yeah, all of her best friends, I haven't mentioned them because they are fucking useless and they don't do anything. Well, they're, like, there. They're given things to do, but they're so, yeah, whatever. She has these friends, Asha has these 7 friends, or the 7 dwarves. Excuse me, which I didn't even get until, like, 3 scenes in with them. And so, like, in Snow White, it's weird because Asha has these parallels to, like, they dress her up as the fairy godmother. So it's like the fairy godmother and the 7 dwarves. And I don't get why they're the dwarves. Like, in Snow White, she was basically like their mom. And the whole movie kind of revolved around this sort of, like, mutual relationship between Snow White and the dwarves. And here they're just kind of like her friends, and one of them is her best friend, and the others do random stuff depending on when the plot needs them. They're like half the dwarves from Lord of the Rings. You know, when they're literally like when Tolkien was like, what if I introduced like 12 characters and only 3 of them are important, but I gave all of them names just because it would be funny. Like, it's a fucking joke that there's so many dwarves, and he just kind of pulls out, they barely have, all the dwarves who barely have personality traits, and he just kind of like, yeah, this guy gets to do something now. That's what they feel like in this movie. Except instead, it's not like, this isn't a 3-hour film that's focused on, like, this party of adventurers. It's like an 80-minute movie or 90-minute movie where they show up a couple times. Yeah, a lot of the, references. Look, we just got done watching Scott Pilgrim Takes Off, and I really loved a lot of the little winks and nods and references and cameos in that series. And for me, that works. Like, the ending of that, like, when the kind of, like, epilogue part of the last episode, there's certain characters who show up who were, like, only in the comics, and you're like, whoa, it's that guy! Yo! That, like, we popped off for, and just teeny tiny little references and dialogue and stuff. And you know what? I was super cool with that because the show was good, and those things just sort of happened in passing. That show felt like a love letter to Scott Pilgrim in many ways. This feels like it's trying to make up for the fact that it's incredibly hollow and shallow by just tossing, hey, isn't that funny? That guy's dressed like Peter Pan. Oh, his dream is to fly. Hey, isn't it? There's the goat. He says he wants to start a city for animals. Isn't that like Zootopia? Isn't that like Zootopia, guys? Don't you remember Zootopia? And you're like, okay. It's like, it's not cute. It's not cute anymore. You gotta be cute to act cute. This movie is boring and it's acting cute, and I don't like it. And then there's just, I don't know, like, the guy just turns evil, and his evil magic, like, he gets, like, green hands, and I don't even know what the fuck the evil magic does. Like, I don't know what his plan is. He's gonna crush all the wishes to get power, because he gets, like, a bump of cocaine every time he crushes one of the wish bubbles. And he's like, I'm gonna crush all the dreams, and everyone's gonna be sad because they have, like, this response when your wish gets crushed. And then Asha stops him by fucking singing, and he's like, no, the power of love, or some shit. And I don't know, it's just fucking so boring. So that's the thing, right? Is that he's, like, totally right at the beginning of the movie. Asha has this thing that's like, everyone deserves to follow their dreams. And it's like, no, actually, Maybe not everyone. Okay, here's the thing. You get your wish taken when you're 18. Dude, half the wishes are just about getting laid. Like, guaranteed, they're just about getting laid. Like, you get, like, when he takes the bubble, he can see, like, the image, like, he can see in your, like, I guess what your mind imagines when you had the wish. Like, how many times do you think he's taken someone's wish and he's like, oh, Jesus, you're into that? All right, and they have no idea. They can't remember it at all. He's extinguished the horniness from them. But he's like, yeah, all right, okay. Maybe some people have bad wishes. Maybe some people are like, dude, I really wish I could kill my neighbor. That's my dream. That's my dream. Maybe some people's, maybe, you know, maybe, you know who wouldn't agree with this would be Walt Disney. Walt Disney does not want everyone's wish to come true. Namely, let me tell you about a little man named Adolf who wanted to be a painter, and he ended up not achieving his dream, but it ultimately led him to doing what, you know, something that Walt Disney really cared about and he was really super into. And I think that he would have been on Magnifico's side, to be honest. I think if Walt Disney had met, you know, Adolf Hitler, he would have been like, I'm going to take your dream, dude. I'm going to take your painting dream and I'm going to crush it. And I think that was the Jews, dude. Oh, my neck. Did you hear that? Holy crap. What the fuck was I talking about? Yeah, some people have terrible dreams. Also, the thing I mentioned, like, was everyone has one dream. Everybody has one thing that they want to do for their entire life. It never shifts or changes or anything. So no one's like, hey, remember how we were just talking about Scott Pilgrim and that character is like 23 and he has like 3 different life goals over the course of that series? And how he's like a completely different person by the end. What, that never happens? This is a movie for babies. It's a movie for babies, which is like, it seems obvious because it's Disney, right? But I think, to be fair, a lot of Disney films are at least enjoyable by adults, or you can at least appreciate them. I can't imagine any adult truly appreciating this film outside of the context of watching it with their kids. Hey, here's another thing about this film's incredible blandness. The art style sucks. It's so flat and boring. Like, they're kind of going for a storybook thing, but a lot of people said it looked unfinished. Kat said it looked unfinished. I don't know if it's unfinished or if it's an intentional stylistic decision, but it doesn't look great. It lacks a lot of like it doesn't look dynamic. It's extremely flat looking. The lighting is all really mono lit. I told her it looks like a fucking like a show on Cubo, which is really mean. At least art style wise. And I think she made some comment, because, you know, I am who I am. She made some comments about, like, Asha and Tiana. And I was like, no, but, like, Tiana was hot. And this is going to sound really stupid, but this made me actually have a breakthrough about what I thought about the art style of this film. I was like, no, Tiana was, like, she's actually, like, drawn to be, like, a gorgeous woman. I don't think you could never make a hot babe in the Wish art style. They could never produce one, because everything is so flat and reserved and lifeless. Every single character is so devoid of anything interesting in terms of their shape or personality. They're just kind of there. It's so fucking stock looking. Yeah, and the whole film is like that. It's just incredible. Boring film that doesn't do anything with any of its concepts. Perhaps a great metaphor for like a modern Disney. If you're super cynical, you can be like, oh, you know, it's a great metaphor, because it's an overly safe product that throws in 3 or 4 different, like, or 2 or 3 different funny mascot characters to sell plushies and takes 0 chances, and just kind of sucks. Yeah, I would not recommend watching it. I think the funniest part, the most enjoyable part of the movie was like randomly making references to slotslight.net as if the whole thing was an ad for the casino. Like, what's your wish? I want to win big at slotslight.net. Oh, yeah, wish, not good. But not good in sort of a way you don't see too often. Apparently this movie probably could have been interesting, probably could have had some talented people probably worked on it. It was just, because there's some concepts from behind the scenes. I didn't even mention the king's wife because she doesn't fucking mean anything. She doesn't matter at all. They were going to originally be like an evil couple. They were going to be fucking Shao Kahn and Sindel, which could have been awesome. But I guess they chickened out and they were like, nah, he's just a mean guy. And she goes, oh, no, the whole movie. And the star had all these different concepts and they just boiled it down to a tiny little goober star. And there's probably a lot of really interesting directions that this could have gone that ended up getting sanded down into the current product. So that was Wish. We watched, I didn't even know that this was out. Good Burger 2? I don't know if I have much to say about this one. So way back, this was her other surprise movie for me. She's like, it's a movie you really liked. It was Good Burger 2. I was like, what the this happened? When did this come out? Oh, like 4 days ago. Okay, cool. So yeah, there's a Good Burger 2. It was on Paramount Plus. We also pirated that because we're not paying for fucking Paramount Plus. Surprisingly, not bad. You kind of assume that you're like, fucking Good Burger 2? After like 30 years? What? Or 20 years? I think that was like 99 or like late 90s or something. Wait, was Good Burger early or late 90s? Good Burger. 97, it was late 90s. Yeah, it kind of surprised me. I was sort of I was like, oh, is this gonna be bad? And then it's surprisingly not. I'm actually curious if it had similar writers. Let's see. The first one was written by Dan Schneider, Kevin Kopelau, and Heath Seifert. Second was written by, oh wow, literally both of those same guys, just without Dan Schneider. Different director. But basically the two of the original writers without Mr. Feet Tickler. Without Dan, the Hyman Collider Schneider. Which actually makes sense. So, okay. Good Burger 2 is a movie that you're not going to like if you didn't like the first movie. It is actually very much in the spirit of the original, down to being fucking stupid. It's a movie that like I classified the original, I characterized it as being a movie that is really dumb, that like is kind of like it's like a dog with a dumb cute little smile with its tongue hanging out. You're like, yeah, doggy, you don't know what the fuck's going on in the world. You're just a little dog, and I love you. That's kind of how I felt about the original Good Burger. Things that operate on like this sort of cartoon logic. The characters are very overblown. Well, some of them are really like over the top. It never quite like completely breaks, but it does dip frequently into just being fucking stupid. But if you go along with it and you can kind of like settle into that tone, it's fun and it's kind of funny and it just, I don't know, it's amusing. It's a very 90s movie. It's a very late 90s movie. This one, I obviously it's recent, so I don't have that same sort of like, oh, this is very of its time kind of thing. But it carries a lot of that same tone, that same kind of writing style. It's really dumb. It's really fucking stupid. But there was like some genuine laughs that we got out of it. This is like what people should mean when they say a turn your brain off movie. Not that you can't think critically about it, it's just the movie isn't thinking that hard about itself. It's Good Burger, but 20 years later, and which one is which? Kenan Thompson. Kenan Thompson is this like failing. What does he do? He's like a sort of inventor. Like he's trying to come up with like gimmick products, and it's like super asbestos essentially, where it's completely fireproof material, and he calls all these investors to his house for some reason, and he's sprayed the front of his house with it, I guess. And he's like blasts it with a flamethrower to demonstrate it, and there's fireworks in his house, and it ends up failing and his whole house burns down, and the fire department don't help him even though they're right there, because apparently there would be no need for a fire department, which is like the dumbest shit ever. It's like the fire department, it's not a private business. They don't profit off of fires. They're tax funded. They're going to exist no matter what. The invention of asbestos did not put the fire department out of business. Like, it's stupid as hell. And so he has to go, the only person he can turn to, I guess, is Ed. It's Kel Mitchell. And, okay, there's a constant weird factor to this film where Kel Mitchell, I'm looking at pictures of him from the modern day, and Kel Mitchell, like 2023. I'm looking at a picture from the modern day. He doesn't look bad. He just looks like he's a 30, 40 something guy, you know? He looks like a young dad kind of age. They put him in a wig to have the same like dread braids as like the first movie. I think they're braids. I don't know, hair. Look, I haven't gotten a haircut in fucking 2 years, 3 years. I don't know what hairstyles they're called. And the wig, dude, there is this serious, it looks like a wig the whole time. It looks super weird and it makes him look way older. It sucks, because, like, I look at him now, and, again, he looks pretty good, right? But in the movie, he looks so fucking old. He looks so old. Like, all the wrinkles on his face are way worse. Just, like, oh, God, he's so weird. He looks like a good 30 years older than he does in real life, or 20 years older. It's bad. And it's the whole movie, and he's essentially has not changed as a character since the first film. And it's really weird. It's really, I don't know if it's distracting just because of the type of movie that it is, but it is really weird. And I was noticing it the whole time. I'm like, fuck, he looks so old. Yeah, so it's I don't know. The whole premise is that what is the idea of this movie? Did I forget already? Oh, it's sort of like the original where they're trying to get the recipe to Ed's secret sauce, but instead they're trying to get them to sell off a Good Burger because he owns it now. He's the owner of the one Good Burger location, and this company is trying to get, like, Megacorp, play on Mondo Corp, is trying to buy the rights to Good Burger. And it's sort of, I guess, kind of a rehash of the original. But it's like, I don't know. I don't care that much. It feels different enough. At one point, so the woman who runs Megacorp is the sister of the guy from the first movie who ran Mondo Corp. And for some reason, she's dressed in, like, the anarcho-capitalist colors, and her belt buckle is just the the ANCAP flag, which I don't know if that was intentional, but if it is, that's kind of like a really funny joke to have the leader of, like, a fucking all-consuming conglomerate corporation be dressed as fucking anarcho-capitalist. Yeah, I don't know. It's just kind of what it is, and it was decently funny and entertaining. If you liked the first movie, you'll probably like Good Burger too. Is there anything else notable? I don't know. It's just kind of that kind of thing for the whole film. And then, are we gonna have another short episode? See, I haven't been playing that many video games. I haven't playing video games. I've just been playing a fuck ton of City of Heroes. This is why MMOs are dangerous, right? Because, like, I've just been, like, doing work and then playing City of Heroes. And it's like, I should really play other shit. Like, I gotta go back and play Half-Life. I have to play Half-Life now that kind of remastered thing came out. I really should. It's a game I kind of should play. But I finally got Cat. We watched this first season of Konosuba. And so it was an interesting experience. I haven't watched the show since, like, 2017 or 2018, and I remember when I was back in high school, like, really loving this show and thinking it was hilarious. We watched the Japanese dub, the original, and going back on revisit, it's a little weird. It's not bad. I don't think it's aged poorly. I think I've slightly aged out of it. But not so much to the point that I can't enjoy it, if that makes sense. So if you don't know the premise of Konosuba, the full title is this fucking awful mouthful because it's based off of a light novel. It's Konosubarashi Sekai ni Sukufuku wo, aka God's blessing on this wonderful world, which tells me literally nothing about the plot. It's an isekai story about this guy named Kazuma who is going. He dies and he's a gamer and he's a shut-in, and it's like me. He's a virgin and he dies and he has this option. He's in, like, the afterlife, and he's confronted with this goddess named Aqua, and she's all kind of high and mighty and haughty, and she tells him that he has a couple options. He can go to heaven, or he can choose to be reincarnated into a new life. And he can either start from zero in, like, on Earth again, or they have, like, another. He's like, I don't really want to do that. But heaven, Aqua tells him that heaven's kind of boring, and she says we actually have this kind of, like, this offer. You can go into essentially a video game world, like a fantasy sort of game world. It's not really a video game. It's sort of a fantasy world with magic that's kind of like a video game. Like a magic system that sort of works like that. Because no one's beaten the game, and that means that no one wants to, like, reincarnate into it because the world just kind of, like, sucks and you can't get anywhere. But so, like, because we're trying to get people, we're trying to repopulate that universe. We have this offer where we can send you there, and you get to pick from, like, you get a super powerful starting thing, like starting item as soon as you get dropped in. So she hands him all this stuff, and he's, like, looking around. He's, like, just sifting through these papers of all these different options he has, and then he's kind of fed up with her attitude. So he's like, you know what? Actually, I think I want to take you, bitch. And she's like, what? What do you mean you want to take me? And like the fucking like super god from above is like, that's fair, you can do that. And he takes her into the fucking isekai world with him, and she is not happy about it. Because now she's like a mortal regular person. And she basically goes from being like super high and mighty, cocky goddess to like, she can't stop screaming, and she's actually kind of like a huge airhead. And she fucking can't handle anything. And they both have to make their way through this world. And it is essentially a sitcom with this sort of like overarching, like, so the idea of winning the game and defeating the final boss, which is the Demon King, like, it's one of those, like, yeah, it's like never really, it's, if the series ever ends, like, that's what it's gonna be, but this could go on for however long they want of just getting into misadventures. So the first episode is like I forgot how much, it's not very funny. There's like, the setup is funny, right? Like, Kat thought it was funny that, oh, he just took her into the world and all that. Like, you can see the humor, but it's not really doing that much with like jokes or character interactions at first. It's a lot of exposition and just setting up like, okay, well, this is a world that's got like a class and a leveling system, and they got to go to the Adventurers Guild. It starts picking up, I think, pretty quickly, because Konosuba is a series that really thrives off of its character interactions. So even if you don't find the humor very funny, I think the characters are all extremely likable, and you just enjoy watching them do things together, because they have very defined personalities and quirks and a lot of flaws. And those get them into and out of trouble. So when you put them in a situation, they just kind of do sort of entertaining things, even if you're not super laughing all the time. We did get a couple good laughs out of it, but it wasn't like a laugh a minute kind of experience. It was just sort of like generally enjoyable. That's why I would say my experience on a revisit. And she liked it. She was down to watch the second season, because she was actually fairly into it, and she liked some of the characters. So the reason I say it picks up after the first episode is that's when episodes 2 and 3, they introduce the kind of rest of the main cast. The four main characters of Konosuba are all people. So the kind of part of the gimmick of their setup, their party makeup, is that on paper they all seem like they would be really competent and a really effective group, but they all have these personality quirks that make them completely dysfunctional. So Kazuma, to begin with, is probably the most competent and the most capable person for like a lot of things. Well, he's the most like solution-minded member, I guess. Like, he kind of lets his flaws rarely cause problems for the characters. Well, directly. Kazuma's thing is that he is very competent, and he has an incredibly high luck stat. The joke is that his luck is so good, but it's only good in kind of like the immediate. Like, he'll get into some kind of situation or problem, and he'll just sort of stumble into something good happening. And then he's like, oh, sweet. And then later on, it kind of comes back to bite him in the ass. Like, oh, there's an episode where they get confronted by, they do all this shit. There's like this whole, like, halfway through the episode, they get confronted by this knight who was also sent there by Aqua, and he's like, the knight's like, what? Aqua happens to be in a cage, and she's traumatized because she almost got eaten by alligators earlier in the episode. And she's all sad and mopey, and he basically is like, you fiend, what have you done to the goddess Aqua? And Kazuma he has like this thief skill of steal, which lets him. His luck is so high. He basically has a 100% hit rate on stealing the most valuable item that someone has. So he just steals this guy's like legendary sword, which was the item that he came into the world with. But he has no idea how to wield it, and it just kind of like bonks the dude on the head like flat, and he gets knocked out, and then he's like, okay, cool. And then he goes and sells off the sword for a bunch of money while the guy's like unconscious, and you just kind of forget about it. And then way later, either later in that episode or like way later, like in another episode, this like super, like this boss character comes to the town, like the starting town that they spend the whole season in. And everyone's like, oh my god, where's that knight guy? He'll save us. And he's like, wait, what knight guy? And they tell him the name, and he's like, yeah, he has this legendary sword. And Kazuma's like, oh, fuck. Stuff like that happens throughout the show. That's kind of Kazuma's... That's his dysfunction, I guess. He's also just kind of a scumbag in a lot of ways. Like his luck stat, like he can steal if he uses his, this is so fucking stupid. If he uses the steal ability on a woman, he just steals their panties every single time because the joke is it's their most valuable item. And the first time it happens, it's like a total, he's like, oh fuck, I did not mean to do that. But he's like kind of psyched about it. And he essentially uses the threat of just stealing women's underwear from them, like in broad daylight, as like a threat. Like he's kind of a scumbag. Aqua is a goddess, so she essentially has her stats maxed out instantly. Like she's at her level, she's at her like the cap of all of her stats. However, yeah, she's like max level, but she has like very low intelligence, which means that she can't get any smarter. So the gag with her is that she's like this, she has this kind of like inflated ego because she's a goddess, but she's really dumb and she's basically an airhead. And a lot of times the shit that she does is what gets them into problems. Like the ideas that she has end up causing issues, because she doesn't think them through very well. But she's like, her main usefulness to the party is that she's like a healer and all that, and she can resurrect people. So she'll randomly come in handy. And then like, I think like part of the joke is she has these like super gigantic, like super Sakuga, beautiful animated like goddess attacks that she uses, but her intelligence is so low that it has like no power behind it. So it just like completely thuds on an enemy. And her most valuable skills end up being like little party tricks that she can do with like making water spouts appear because people are like, whoa, take my money. That was so cool. They get joined by this witch girl named Megumin. And okay, I had to pause to explain to Kat. Megumin is supposed to be like giga cringe. She's supposed to be super lame. Megumin is a chuuni, which if you don't know what a chuuni is, it comes from this anime called Love Chunibyo and Other Delusions, and it essentially means 8th grade syndrome. Chunibyo. So the anime is about this guy who in middle school, he was like a little too into anime and video games and stuff like that, and he took himself a little too seriously. And he insisted that people call him the Dark Flame Master for like a whole year. And he just kind of gets a year older and graduates from middle school. And he just kind of grows out of it. And he is instantly so fucking embarrassed by himself that he has to like move all the way across Japan to go to a different high school because he's completely tanked his social, like he's always gonna be that guy. He will never live it down. And then the gag of the anime is then he ends up running into like this girl and her group of fucking like AO3 reading friends who are the exact same way. That's the idea. Megumin is a chuny character. She essentially takes herself. She's a little dork, but she takes herself way too seriously. And she has trained. She's an arc wizard, or they say arc. It should be arch, but I guess in Japanese they say arc. She's an arch wizard, which means she has like the most. It's like the most advanced offensive magic class in the world, and she has the capability to use basically any spell. She's actually super powerful, but the only thing that she uses is that she obsesses over explosion magic. She can basically just fucking Oppenheimer the ground. She can just absolutely atom bomb at will. And the downside is that it uses up so much stamina that she is literally like she can't move. She just falls over. The gag is she just drops a nuke and then falls face first onto the ground. She just face plants, and someone has to like pick her up. So Megumin is like not super delusional. She's just like, well, she sort of is. She's basically just held back by the fact that she's way too into explosion magic. And then the final member of the party is Darkness, who I think was Kat's favorite character. Not for the reason I was expecting. Apparently, Darkness reminds Kat of Richard Pryor, which is really weird. But Darkness is a paladin, and her deal is that she's like a tank class, right? And she's just like a total masochist. Like, she's a freak. She loves getting beat up. She loves being verbally abused. And she couldn't find any other parties who were willing to take her because she kept running into battle to get intentionally beat up by enemies. Because she's a freak. And she's just constant. Like, if you say anything kind of rude to her, she just busts on the spot. She also cannot land a hit to save her life. Like, there's a scene where she's fighting this like, she's having this big epic fight with this boss character, and she does this like super well, like epic animated slash attack, and like two rocks on either side, like 10 feet to the side, like on both side, just explode, and the guy is completely untouched. Like, how are you that inaccurate? Like, that's the joke. So the party altogether is essentially like all these people who just like cannot help themselves. It's a bunch of people who can't help themselves getting into situations, trying to get money to like do shit like just pay off debt. And every situation, like, it's all really enjoyable. I wasn't laughing at everything, but just seeing the characters bounce off of each other is really natural. The dialogue, a lot of the characters are pretty wordy, which I think watching it in Japanese hurts a little bit because you finished the whole line by the time they've gotten like halfway through it. Like, you finished reading it. But it has this kind of almost conversational tone to it at points where characters will just sort of talk over each other at random intervals, which is pretty rare in anime. Like, they don't typically do that kind of thing. There's this sort of running gag, which apparently I love it. I don't think Kat picked up on it yet. I think it gets more apparent, I think, in the second season. But everyone always runs to Kazuma for help, and they always go, Kazuma-san! And every single time they say it, like they go, oh, Kazuma. They'll just keep saying it. Like, usually Aqua when she's freaked out. And every single time he'll just go, yes, I'm Kazuma. Kazuma desu. Kazuma deyo. Kazuma desu. Hi, Kazuma desu. Just, yeah, I'm Kazuma. Yeah, that's me. That's my name. Yeah. Like, he's so sick of just hearing people, getting people asking him for help. Apparently the voice actor like improv those lines in the studio, which is kind of funny. Because I think he's rarely on camera or like facing the camera, like with his mouth visible when he says those. So the voice actor is just like, oh, I can just throw in a line here because I can just dub it over essentially. Because they usually do the animation before the voice acting in anime. Yeah, one thing that I noticed, it's a short season. Both seasons are short. They're about 10 episodes. And I realized that every episode was really memorable. Excuse me. In that every single one, I remember, like, I remembered it. I thought, and it kind of caught me off guard because I was like, oh, does this episode happen already? I could have sworn there was something in between this. Like something kind of forgettable. No, every single episode, with the exception of like one, there's one, so like episode 7 or something like that. It's where they go to like the snow and Kazuma is dead for half of it. It feels kind of fillery, but yeah, that for the most part, every single one is like a bit that I remembered. That I didn't realize that, oh, every single episode has something, has a funny, some kind of premise, some kind of hook. This is where this character gets introduced. This is where they do this. Oh, this is the episode where they they get a job. They have to exorcise the spirits out of a haunted mansion. And the only one who can really like purify the ghosts is Aqua because she's a goddess and all that, and she's all holy. So, like, Kazuma and Megumin get into this fucking, they get into this predicament where they're trapped in this haunted house that's really scary and they don't want to leave their rooms, but they both really have to pee. They really have to use the bathroom. And that's just like the conflict for the episode. Yeah. So, on rewatch, I didn't find it quite as funny as I did when I was in high school, but I still enjoyed it quite a bit. I think that owes to the characters and all. I think that stuff is super solid. And Kat also felt the same way. And it's funny because she would acknowledge that things were funny. She'd go, "Oh, that's really funny," but she wouldn't laugh. It's kind of like, okay, I can totally appreciate that this is a good idea or that this is like a really funny twist. And it's like entertaining, but it's not making me laugh out loud kind of thing. Like, oh, that character was, or oh, that thing they did earlier caused this to happen. Oh, that's funny. Yeah. And I didn't even connect the dots on that. Yeah. So I'm excited to watch the second season. I remember how it begins. I kind of forget some of the stuff in the rest of it, but I remember liking both seasons quite a bit. We'll probably watch the movie as well, which I saw that in theaters with one of my friend's moms. It was gonna be like 3 of us all going to see the movie because it was playing at a local theater. But one of us had to drop out because he had a tutoring session that he forgot about. That's its whole story. And we ended up going with my other friend's mom, who like didn't know anything about the show. And that movie is it's a lot. Like it's really fucking out there with certain scenes. And I'm like, oh God, I don't know how someone who like doesn't watch anime is gonna react to some of this stuff. Oh, one thing about Konosuba that I find really funny is the animation is like kind of shitty, but in like a good way. The animation can be absolutely phenomenal when it wants to, but a lot of the time, a lot of characters look kind of dumpy and weird, and a lot of the women have these like big floppy tits, and like it's such a silly, stupid looking show. It has its own look to it, and part of it comes from just how dumpy it looks, and I kind of love that. It doesn't look clean and nice and pretty. And that's kind of a great contrast to how good and memorable the character designs are. Every single character in the show, like at least the main cast, is just super iconic. People still post like Megumin and like Aqua memes because those characters are so memorable looking, and they're not like, they don't have to go that crazy. It's just like Megumin's a great like cute little witch girl design. Aqua is like, well, she doesn't wear panties. Immediately, that's one of the first things you learn about Aqua is she doesn't wear panties. The character designs are great. Like, the whole color design, everyone's got... Kazuma's green, and Megumin's red, and Aqua's blue, and Darkness is yellow and white. And all the, like, really great character design work. Whoever put those together for, I guess, the light novel, the original light novel, bravo. That was incredible. Let me actually find that out. Konosuba light novel... No, not Konosuba. Novel illustrator? Kurone Mishima. Also did Akashic Records of Bastard Magic Instructor. Fucking, I hate these names. What's her art style? Did she work on, what the heck? Oh, did she design LaPlus from Hololive? That's funny. Let's see. She's pretty much just... Yeah, no, okay, yeah. Not a lot of, like, anime work. Oh, published manga. I don't know, who did she do the character designs for? I don't know. She has a very good character design sense. Yeah. Anyway. Do I have anything else to talk about? Not really. I'm excited to watch the rest of Konosuba with Kat. Ooh, we might have a little delay on that because Kat's a wagey now. She got a job. That's right, she got a retail job. So now she can, like, buy plushies or whatever. Hey, you want to hear something embarrassing about Kat? Before I go. So she was like, hey, what's the minimum cutoff before you have to file taxes? Or so before you have to do taxes? And I said, do taxes or like file taxes or pay taxes? Because that's different. And she said, file tax. And I said, as far as I'm aware, it's like $600 now, which is fucking insane. And she goes, oh, okay. So, but I was like, no, I said, it's like, okay, it's like $600. You have to make $600 in a year. But they probably won't be enforcing that because I just learned this recently from my dad. He told me, hey, you probably won't get any like tax filing paperwork at the start of next year because the IRS they crunched some numbers, aka someone thought about it for more than 1 second and they realized, wait, hang on, the old threshold was 20,000. Now we lowered it to 600. That's a lot more paperwork that we have to do, and we're already the IRS. Maybe let's just hold off on enforcing that for like a year. Let's get through the backlog, you know? So I told her that. I was like, yeah, even if it's like 600, even if you hit like the 600 minimum threshold, you probably won't have to file because of that. And she goes, oh, that's good. That means I won't have to put in my 2 weeks notice. And I was like, what? She's like, so I learned that Kat was so scared of the idea of having to file taxes that her plan was to just quit before she made enough money. Before she made enough money to have to file them. I was like, babe, it's not even hard. You just get like a fucking... Your bank does like half the work by just record keeping on your debit card. Like, oh, she's so silly. Which also, mind you, at like a retail job making slightly above minimum wage, you would hit $600 in like the first week. Week or 2 weeks at least. She's so silly. She's so silly. I know she's listening to this. I love you, baby. You're silly. I'll help you do taxes, baby. Anyway, if you've been listening this far, thank you for listening to me ramble. Still working on the video. If you have a question, please leave it down in the comments below. But leave it in the form of a question, because I'm not just going to read your thoughts out loud. Check out the main channel. I recently did a video on my second channel of just doing a reading of a short horror story that I wrote at the end of October. It's called There Is a Window in Your House That You've Never Seen. And I was very proud of that, so I did a reading of it because I thought it would be fun. And yeah, that's it. That's all I gotta say. Bye.